This is Frank DeMore with the End Times Research Ministry, bringing you another prophecy that we've been looking at. One of these prophecies, as you see here, has to do with the rebuilding of the Jewish temple. And I think, as I often say, I'm pretty sure you're going to find this information interesting. But first, I need to connect what the Old Testament had to say. This is found in the Bible concerning the warning that the third temple is going to be rebuilt in the last days. This is what it says in Ezekiel chapter 44, verses 1 through 3. Then the man brought me back to the outer gate of the sanctuary, the one facing east, and it was shut. The Lord said to me, "This gate is to remain shut. It must not be open. No man may enter through it. It is to remain shut because the Lord, the God of Israel, has entered through it. The prince himself is the only one who may sit inside the gateway to eat in the presence of the Lord. He is to enter by way of the protocol of the gateway and go out the same way." So what we know from this prophecy is that the east gate was going to be sealed up until the Lord Jesus Christ would walk through it. And this has been sealed up for countless years, waiting for the Messiah, Jesus Christ, to come. Now, before he can come, there is something major that has to happen in Bible prophecy, and let me show you what that is. In the book of Daniel, for example, in chapter 9, verse 24, it says this, "And he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week." And he's talking about the he here. This is the Antichrist, who's going to make some kind of agreement for a period of 7 years. And in the midst of the week, in other words, in the middle of the 7-year period of time, or exactly 1,260 days, which equals 3.5 years. So in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. So what he's going to do, the Antichrist, the he in this verse, he is going to go into the temple that's going to be rebuilt and stop the sacrifices that they begin. Now, in order for the sacrifices to begin again, obviously, where did they do it when Jesus was alive? At the temple. And since there is no temple, we know that when Jesus comes, he is going to fight against the Antichrist, and the temple will be rebuilt during the tribulation period. So what goes hand in hand here? Sacrifices and a new temple that is going to be rebuilt. And of course, the temple is going to look just like this. This is a replica of the temple that they are planning to build in Israel. Now, Jesus Christ also talks about this temple. Take a look at Matthew chapter 24, verse 15. It says this, "When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whosoever readeth, let him understand." Now, the holy place that he is referring to is the same one that we just read in Daniel. As a matter of fact, Jesus even alludes to what Daniel said. So there's no confusion. We know exactly what Jesus is saying. Third temple is going to be rebuilt. Antichrist is going to go in there, just like we read in Daniel 9:27, and stop the sacrifices. Now, take a look at this from 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4. "Who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God." Now, he's talking about the Antichrist again here. "Or that it was worshipped, so that he," according now, the he again is the Antichrist, "as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God." So he's going to go in. He's going to go into this temple at that 3.5-year mark and tell everybody that he's God. And at that point, he's going to tell everybody that they need to take his mark or the number of his name. And as it says in Revelation chapter 13. And when I'm referring to the book of Revelation, it says in Revelation chapter 13, starting in verse 16, "And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead, and that no man might buy or sell, say he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name." So take a look at this. It said had, number one, the mark. All right, so some kind of mark. And then notice it says or. It doesn't just say a mark, it says or the name of the beast, which would be the second thing, or it could be a third thing, the number of his name. So either some kind of mark, some kind of name of the beast, or the number of his name. Either one of those things. Now, a lot of teachers just always say the mark of the beast in the right hand or the forehead, but there's actually a component here of three different things that they can be using that would lead to worship of the Antichrist. And that would be some kind of mark, some kind of name of the beast, or the number of his name. I think that's very important to understand that, because most people think there's only one mark and that's placed in the right hand, but it could be one of the three. So that is the Antichrist. That's what he's going to be doing at the 3.5 year mark into the 7-year tribulation. Now let's go back to the scriptures, because it is very plain what the Lord is revealing to us about the last days. And of course, if you don't read the Bible, you're never going to understand this, and you will be taken by surprise when it happens if you are not ready and standing side by side with Jesus Christ, the Messiah. Now today there was a very interesting article. I'm going to present to you two news articles that came out today. This one's May 20th, 2016. It says U.S. House passes religious freedom bill protecting Bris Milah Shachida. You're going to see why this article is really important, because it has to do with killing of animals. This is what the article says. The U.S. House of Representatives unanimously passed a bill expanding the protection offered by the International Religious Freedom Act of 1998 to include male circumcision and, now get this, ritual animal slaughter. In other words, the same kind of slaughter that the Jews would be doing when they start their sacrifices at the Temple Mount again. It says, the world is experiencing an unprecedented crisis of international religious freedom, a crisis that continues to create millions of victims, a crisis that undermines liberty, prosperity, and peace, a crisis that poses a direct challenge to the U.S. interest in the Middle East, Russia, China, Sub-Saharan Africa, and elsewhere. The U.S. Chris Smith, RNJ, which stands for Republican New Jersey, author of the bill, said in a statement. So I find it very, very interesting that they pass a bill of allowing people to kill animals for these sacrifices. We haven't ever seen anything like this. And I don't believe that it is a coincidence, because if Jesus tells us they're going to start up the sacrifices, we see the United States passing their bills for freedom to do this. You'll see that it's no coincidence at all, but these are the preludes, the signs to actually fulfilling the prophecy that Jesus talked about these animal sacrifices. But that's not all the news that came out today about this. Wait till you see this next set of news. This is a picture of Rabbi Glick. Rabbi Glick is very influential when it comes to the rebuilding of the Temple Mount. He is part of the Temple Mount Institute. He is one of the major leaders. He is one of the people that have been pushing the Israeli government to start building the third temple so that they can perform the ritual sacrifices that we read about in the Old Testament and that we read about in the New Testament that were taking place at the time that Jesus was alive. And even in this picture that you see here, Rabbi Glick is holding up a picture of the third temple. Now, as I said earlier in this video, you cannot have a sacrifice without the temple because you got the altar there. But now, under Rabbi Glick, who has gotten all of the things, all of the instruments, everything that used to be in the Old Testament for animal sacrifices, they've reproduced everything. The only thing that they don't have is a third temple, but we know that it is coming, and he is part of it. Now, this is where it really gets good. Take a look at this next article. This article is coming from the Jerusalem Post, May the 20th, that's today, of 2016. Take a look at the article. Breaking news. Temple Mount activist Yehuda Glick slated to be the next MK after Ya'alan resignation. Now keep in mind, this is the same Glick from the Temple Mount Institute, the one that is pushing for the rebuilding of the Temple Mount. Temple Mount activist Yehuda Glick is slated to become the next MK for the Likud party after Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alan announced his resignation from the ministry and the Knesset Friday morning. Glick is a controversial figure in religious and political life in Israel, becoming the face of the Jewish struggle for prayer rights at the Temple Mount. As a result of his advocacy, Glick was the victim of the near-fatal terror attack nearly 2 years ago, having survived being shot 4 times by an assailant. So here's the bottom line. We're going to have the man who's been pushing for the Temple Mount area to see the resurrection of the third Jewish temple, and he is now going into a powerful position within the Israeli government, and no doubt he is going to push what he has been pushing over these many years for prayer to go up on the Temple Mount, just like I've been warning you. I've been telling you, it isn't if, it's when it's going to happen. The Jews are going to be able to go up just like the Muslims and be able to pray, and not only to pray, but they're going to be able to do the sacrifices and their third temple. And I believe that this man was spared. He was shot 4 times. I believe that he didn't die because he probably has this fulfillment that he has to do, and that's to help build this third temple. Now keep in mind, I do want to let everybody know that the building of the third temple is not a blessing for anybody, because we know that this third temple is being used and will be used by the Antichrist. It will be a defilement. He will defile this temple, just like Antoninus Epiphanes did in the Old Testament when he was slaughtering pigs. But the bottom line is this: keep your eyes on what happens in the Israeli government now that Rabbi Glick is becoming one of the head people in the Likud party in the Israeli government. Very, very interesting times that we're living in. This is Frank DeMoore from the End Times Research Ministry.
Bris Mila Shachida.